that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 5 English lesson on quotations and dialogue. So, we'll be doing our grade 5 English lesson on quotations and dialogue. And before we start with our lesson on quotations and dialogue, we're going to log into aplusstudents.ca. And then we're going to log in with our username as well as our password. So then we have English Language Arts, grade 5. And then once we have selected English Language Arts, grade 5, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of quotations and dialogue. So, quotations and dialogue. Before we even start with the lesson on quotations and dialogue, dialogue is basically conversation, right? It's conversation between two or more people. That is a conversation, it's a speech, it's talking to someone. And then quotations is like, for example, in quotation marks. So usually if you are either writing, let's say, an essay, or you're writing a letter or something, and then if you want to basically say what the next person said, and then you can put it in quotation marks. All right. So quotations and dialogue. So like we say, dialogue is to do with conversation. It's to do with conversation between two or more people. And we said that quotation is like quotation marks, right? All right. So our chapter for today is quotation and dialogue. Our subject is English, which is language arts, grade 5. So the lessons today that we'll be focusing on under the chapter of quotation and dialogue is by punctuating dialogue. So in today's lesson, we're going to be punctuating dialogue. All right, so basically, a quotation shows the exact words that a person said. It's like putting it in quotation marks, right? So it basically shows the exact words that the person said. So, this lesson or the chapter on quotations and dialogues, we are doing the tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. So we're doing the lesson on A plus students.ca. So if you want to recap, go over the lesson, follow with us, and then you can go to A plus students.ca. And once again, we said our chapter is quotation and dialogue. Subject is English language arts, grade 5, and the lesson that we'll be focusing on is participating in dialogue. So basically, a quotation shows, we said, an exact words that the person said, and that we put in inverted commas if somebody directly said something. So we said a quotation shows the exact words that a person said, right? So if I say something and you want to quote me, right? And then it means that when you write either in your essay or you have to write something, and then you need to open inverted commas, write whatever I said, and then you close inverted commas. Or let's say the quotation marks. And when writing quotation, we always need to capitalize the first word. So we said that when you write quotations, then we need to capitalize the first word. And then the entire quotation, including the end mark, should go inside of the quotation mark. That is including the end mark. All right. So we said that we are doing oopsie our lesson or our chapter on quotation and dialogue, and we said dialogue is to do with speech, right? Conversation between two people or more. And then now we're talking about quotation, right? And we see that it shows the exact words that a person said. And whenever we write a quotation, we need to capitalize the first word and then the entire or the rest of the quotation, including the end mark, should go inside of the quotation exact. And an example of a quotation. So I have to leave now, she said. Even where are you going? He asked. And then if the quotation ends in a sentence, then. So basically, as you can see with these two examples, these are basically an example of how you should quote or show your quotation within a sentence, right? So she said, I have to leave now. So that is basically in quotations. or where are you going? And the as you can see, the question mark is also inside of the quotation. All right. So when we capitalize, right? Or when we do quotations or writing quotations, right? Then there's certain rules that you need to follow. So there are rules for using quotations. And the first rule for using a quotation is you need to always begin your quotation with a capital letter. So begin your quotation with a capital letter. And if the quote, which is your quotation, comes before the person who spoke, then place a comma after the quote before the closing quotation mark. For example, the world is a very big place with 7 continents and 4 oceans, the teacher told the class. So the world is a very big place with 7 continents and 4 oceans. There we have a comma. The teacher told the class. So that's an example plus 2 rules when it comes to quotation marks. And the first one says we need to begin quotations with a capital letter. Capital letter. All right, so we said we are doing our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. So let's go to aplusstudents.ca and we are now going to be punctuating dialogue. And remember, when we are punctuating dialogue, then it means that we need to add our proper punctuation marks where applicable or where necessary. So we're going to punctuating dialogue. All right, so once again, we are now by our um, aplusstudents.ca. We are by that tutorial lesson. And we said a quotation shows the exact words that a person said, right? Because, like we said, that you cannot just take somebody's words and make it as your own. You need to quote the person, right? This is what the person said. Or more like your quotation will basically show that this person. So the quotation mark will either show that we are talking about this person or we had a discussion about that person. So quotation shows the exact words that a person said. And when writing a quotation, you need to capitalize the first word. So we capitalize the first word. Then the entire quotation, including the end mark, should go inside the quotation mark. So I have to go now or I have to leave now, she said. And there The it starts with a capital letter and it has a comma, and literally all of that is inside of the bracket. Where are you going? Where capitalize, going is with a question mark. So also, if the quotation ends in a sentence, right? Then we add a comma before it. For example, she said, I have to leave now. She said, I have to leave now. Or he asked, where are you going? So that means that if the quotation ends in a sentence or ends a sentence, then we need to add a comma before it. And if the quotation starts a sentence, so we see that if the quotation starts with sentence and would normally end in a period, then change the period to a comma. Because if the quotation ends with an exclamation mark or question mark, don't change it to a comma. For example, I have to leave now, she says. Or where are you going? He asked. So quotations can be used to show dialogue, which is a conversation between two or more people. So we said quotations can be used to show dialogue, which is a conversation between two or more people. And that is basically what I also mentioned right at the beginning of our lesson, right? About the dialogue, right? Which is a conversation between two or more people, which means that quotations creates conversation, and that is also a dialogue. So quotations, we said, can be used to show dialogue, which is a conversation between two or more people. All right. So now we're going to say which sentence is correct. The scientists are setting up telescopes on the hill, she said. Or do we say the scientists are setting up a telescope on the hill? We need to choose between these two sentences to say which one is correct. So which sentence is correct. So it is the scientists are setting up telescopes. So the scientists are setting up telescopes on the hill, or the scientists are setting up telescopes on the hill. So if we look at the sentence, right, then the sentence that is correct is the first one. Because I said quotations always need to start with a capital letter. All right. So there we have our first answer. So we said that the scientists are setting up the telescopes on the hill. Remember, they said that firstly, your whatever you quote needs to be in capitalization, needs to be capitalized, especially the beginning of that word or the start of the sentence needs to be capitalized. So now we need to say which one is correct. They made butter using a churn from the local farm, Mr. Larson said. Or the next one, which is they made butter using a churn from the local farm. I think if we this one, they made butter using a churn from the local farm. So Mr. Lawson said, comma, and there we start with our capital letter. They made butter using a churn from a local farm. All right, so we need to say which sentence is correct. The committee is rewriting our town's parking laws, he explained. So is it the first one, which is the committee is rewriting our town's parking laws, he said, or the committee is rewriting our town's parking laws, he explained. Basically, oh, so basically the second one, because it says the committee is rewriting our town's parking laws, comma, he explained. So then the comma is also there to bring about a pause, but that is correct because comma. All right, let us quickly go to our test. Then I want to know which sentence is correct. So which sentence is correct? The coyote vanished across the prairie. The prairie, she says. Or is it the second one? The coyote vanished across the prairie, she says. The first one, the comma is outside of the quotation, and the second one, the comma is inside of the quotation, right? And now we're just thinking of what the rule said, where your quotation, it starts with a capital letter, and everything, including your period or your end mark, needs to be inside of the quotation mark. All right, so you think it's the first one, right? Where the comma is outside of the quotation mark. All right, so if you want us to, I still think it's probably the second one, but let's choose the first one. All right, so it's basically the second one, right? Because here they said, remember one of the rules was that quotation, when you do a quotation, then it needs to be capitalized. And basically your end period or all your punctuations needs to be inside of that quotation. So it's basically the second one. But good trying. So which sentence is correct? The teacher said, you can never learn about dinosaurs in an encyclopedia. The full stop is inside of the quotation, and yet, as the teacher said, you can never learn about dinosaurs in an encyclopedia, and yes, the full stop is outside of the quotation. So we will choose option one. Because remember, they said our in period needs to be inside. So the beetle has long white stripes. Observe the student. Or the beetle has long white stripes. Observe the student. One has a full stop and the other has a comma. So which sentence is correct? One has a full stop, which is the first option, and the other one has a comma, which is the second option. So the beetles has long white stripes. Observed the student. All right, so if we choose the correct one, then we'll choose the one with the comma. So with the comma, not with the full stop. So which sentence is now correct? Because remember, we are now punctuating our dialogue, our speech, our conversation, how we quoted, what we quoted. I delivered a damaged package today. reported the mail carrier. Or I delivered a damaged package today, reported the mail carrier. So we need to choose the correct sentence or the correct quotation. All right, so let's choose the first one with the comma. And the one with the comma is correct. And remember, we said that when writing a quotation, we start with a capital letter, and then all your punctuations or your end mark needs to be inside of your needs to be inside of the quotation, right? We're on to the next one. Which one is correct? Which sentence is correct? The scientist announced it's time to begin our experiment. Or the scientist announced it's time to begin our experiment. So if we look at these two options, right? The first one says the scientist announced it's time to begin our experiment. Full stop. Or the scientist announced, comma, it's time to begin our experiment. Full stop. So if we choose the correct one, let us choose the second one. Yes, so the scientist announced, comma, and then we have our whatever the scientist announced. So now we need to also say which sentence is correct. I only wear clothing made from cotton, he protested. Or option two, I only wear clothing made from cotton, he protested. So the first one says, I only wear clothing made from cotton, full stop. He protested. And the next one is comma. Let us choose the second option. All right, so the second option with the comma, that one was correct. And there's a wonderful art show at the library, said Tina. Or option two, there's a wonderful art show at the library, full stop, said Tina. So let's choose the first one with the comma, not the full stop. And which sentence now is correct? She explained, when I was little, I had a lemonade stand. Or the second option, she explained, comma, when I was little, I had a lemonade stand. So we need to select the correct sentence. So she explained, when I was little at the lemonade stand, I think it is the second option with the comma. All right, so now which is correct? Which one is correct? The geese look so funny waddling across the road, Mia giggled. Or the geese look so funny. Did I say funny or lovely? Funny? Waddling across the road, Mia giggled. So basically, the option one, the comma is outside of the quotation, and option two, the comma is inside of the quotation. So we will go with option two. So if we look at, all right, so we have the second option. Yes. So we're continuing. So which one is correct, right? I like to hike in nature preserves. I like to hike in nature preserves, declared the boy. Or is it option two? I like to hike in nature preserves, declared the boy. So the second option has a full stop. The first option has a comma. Let us choose the one with the comma. Because it's nature reserves, declared the boy. Yes, well done. And he explained, an acrobat must have good balance. So we need to select the correct sentence. He explained, an acrobat must have good balance, or he explained, comma, an acrobat must have good balance. So we need to choose the correct sentence. Which one do you think is the correct sentence? Is it option one or option two? The correct sentence. All right, so if we choose the correct sentence, let's go with option two. And that is correct. So which sentence is correct? Here we have two options. The first one is the basement bathroom leaks. He explained, he claimed. And then the second one is the basement bathroom leaks. Full stop. He claimed. So which means that we are taking the first option. So we need to say which sentence is correct. My voice is hoarse from yelling, she whispered. Or my voice is hoarse from yelling, she whispered. The first one has a comma, second one has a full stop. Let us choose quickly the first one with a comma. And that is correct. All right, let's do two more. Mr. Lawson said, comma, they made butter using a churn from the local farm. And the second one says, Mr. Lawson said, they made butter using a churn from the local farm. So if we look at both of these sentences, the first sentence, it starts with lower cases. And remember, we said that if we use quotations, then it means that your sentence needs to start with a capital letter. So we'll go with option two. All right. So that was basically our lesson on quotations and dialogues, right? And we said when it comes to quotation and dialogue, firstly, a dialogue is a conversation, and it's a conversation between two or more people, right? And with a dialogue, it is where you basically have names of people that you are conversing with or having a conversation with. Whereas with a quotation, right, if we now were to look at the difference, a quotation doesn't necessarily give you the names on the one side of the people, right? But they will maybe like say it in the form of a sentence, whatever the person was saying. If you directly quote what the person says, that is where quotation comes in, then it means that you need to quote what the person says, right? Whatever you quote goes into the quotation mark, and then your quote needs to start with a capital letter. Your quote starts with a capital letter. As you are, for example, writing, typing your quote, and then either your comma or whatever punctuation you are going to use, right, whether it's a comma, full stop, exclamation, or question, it needs to be inside of the quotation mark, right, to show that your sentence is complete. Um, it is wrong if it starts with a lowercase because it starts with a capital letter. Almost like you need to treat it like a normal sentence. And then even if you basically say what the person said before or after your quotation, you say whatever the person said, comma, or you can even first say what your quotation mark, what you can first quote whatever, then you can say this is what the specific person said. So once again, there's a difference between a quotation mark and a dialogue, because a dialogue is a conversation between two or more people. And with a dialogue, we do not add quotations. Whereas with quotations, you add quotation marks, which clearly states what the person says. It's basically the direct words that the person said. So we put that in quotation marks. All right, so grade 5, this is the end of our lesson on quotations and dialogue. Thank you very much for joining the class. I really hope you're going to have an amazing day further. Goodbye.